I'm not late. I'm always on time. Why do people keep assuming that I'm late? Here we go. I'm under the troll now. I'm sitting on the river. I'm bathing, chat. I'm bathing. People take a bath. I'm bathing. Okay, I'll put myself in the corner here where it's dry.
Everyone.
So, I'm going to talk a little bit about politics. I haven't talked about politics in a while now, have I? I usually talk about funny stuff. And we're going to discuss the situation in Ukraine. Is that not dangerous? It's dangerous to talk. And then we're going to talk about the farmers. So, how have you guys been doing? Because I've been doing great. My cat is out of horny jail. It finished its lockdown period in the bathroom where it meows. So now I can enjoy my cat as well. Having a good day. The euro is falling, which means that the super chats are actually worth more. I might get less than I used to, but it's still the same amount. Because now $5 is like getting $20 back in the day. Oh my fucking god. The euro is in free fall, by the way. It's like the dollar is more than a euro. I wonder if it's accurate what I just said, but I remember like this morning when I woke up, a euro was worth just the same as a dollar. Now it's like, holy shit. Let me check actually. Dollar and euro. How much? Euro loses value dollar. You know, like this is so shameful considering that your administration was printing money like crazy. I wonder if it's still printing money. Like, I wouldn't be surprised. The euro slumped to its lowest. Like, who the fuck wants your... Like, what are you going to buy with euro? Clearly not food. Clearly not food because they are fucking with the farmers. So if you have euros, you can't buy food. You can't buy energy. You can't buy fuel. What the fuck are you going to buy? IT. That's what you're... The IT sector. Very beautiful sector. Every single... Did you notice that? Like, the progressives worship the IT sector. It's like the cathedral or some shit. Like, every progressive kid, out of every progressive family, like, what do you want to do when you grow up? I want to be in IT. IT is wonderful if you have an industry to attach it. Like, what the fuck do you do with IT? Oh, you do an app. Okay, so where does the app goes? Oh, to actually something that's physical. Right? Like someone drives a car and needs the app. Like someone does some actual shit and needs your app. Now, if the person that actually does the shit doesn't have a job, like the person driving the car doesn't have fuel for the car, then fuck your app. Naruhodo? But like the problem is that the IT experts aren't understand. But like I'll tell you this, with euros you can still use the IT sector. That's it. So the euro said currency dropped to its lowest value against the dollar. The euro fell as much as 1.3% against the dollar, its weakest rate since December 2002. The deepest part of a long-term trend with the euro weakening against the dollar. It brings the euro closer to the dollar parity, something unseen since its creation. Euro-related currencies such as the Hungarian forint and Polish zloty and the Romanian leu has also weakened considerably against the US currency. Do you know why? Do you know why, chat? Do you know what you need to buy gas? That's right. You need to have dollars, chat. Saudi Arabia only sells in dollars. They do not sell in filthy euros. You can bring gold to the Saudis. They will say no. We want dollars. If they want dollars, then the value of the dollar grows. At least outside of the US. In the US, you still have inflation. But outside, we want dollars. So the fall of the euro is linked to the growing fears about the likelihood of a recession. The survey data shows that business growth across the zone indicators suggest that the region could slip into decline. I love how the journalists, you know, like when someone says something racist, they categorically, like they don't say this person allegedly is a racist. No, it's like it's a racist piece of shit. But when it's about economy, it's like It may fall into a decline. Dude, I'm willing to bet everything I have that the European Union is going to fall into a recession. Like, you don't need to use words like could and maybe. The question is not even when. Like, it's probably next year. Here you go. Euro poor, and my cat is in jail as well for threatening the chickens. I never understand how the fuck the cats do that. Like, you can train your cat to leave your chickens alone, but it will fuck with the neighbor's chickens. But like yours, like, how does the cat know that it is your chickens? There was also a neighbor which had a vicious dog, and this vicious dog, it constantly killed cats. But there was one cat that didn't got killed. It was the neighbor's cat, like the house cat, just walked towards this vicious dog and just purred against it and rubbed itself against it, then went into the house and the dog didn't do nothing. I think like the dog had an identify friend or foe installed. I genuinely don't know how it did it, but it's the same with chickens. Like, cats know that, okay, these chickens I should leave alone, and they go to the neighbor and fuck with those chickens instead. Also, why do you call me euro poor? Like, so far the euro and the dollar are at the same value. So you need to wait until the dollar goes higher. I'm also drinking beer. Okay, let's talk about the farmers. More interesting, the farmers. Farmville. Farmers. We are not slaves. The European farmers protest against green regs decimating food production. Well, see, I don't really like this chant. It's like, we are not slaves. The difference between farmers and slaves is that slaves get fed. Right? Like, the slaves would get food. The government doesn't want you to have food. That's the difference. Like, the government is telling you that the farms aren't sustainable and they want to shut them down. So, not a good comparison. I guess like the government wants the farmers to learn how to code. That's pretty much a better comparison. Farmers have staged uprisings. Why do they call them uprising? It's protest. What is the difference between a protest and an uprising? Let me check. Like, I think uprising is with pitchforks and shit. Like, uprising is when it's violent, right? An act of resistance, rebellion, a revolt. Yeah, like, well, usually it's like the Spartacus uprising. Like, the slaves, they have picked up weapons and are marching against the capital. That's how I envision it. But anyway, right, so following the examples of the Dutch, farmers who are fighting against climate policy that could cripple the local agricultural industry, according to multiple reports. See, this is something that I understand. What you have people that are like, well, like, there were Black Lives Matter protests in Germany, and you didn't find the insight on why the Germans are protesting for something that's happening in the US. So why are you now agreeing with the farmers from Italy if the thing is happening in the Netherlands? And the answer is simple, you bigot. Okay? Like, the reason these farmers are protesting is that they're afraid that's what's happening in Netherlands is going to happen in their country. So they're protesting to prevent some regulations from happening that could take away their livelihood. With the Black Lives Matter in Germany, I find it extremely unlikely that a German cop is ever going to shoot a black person in Germany. I don't think historically it has ever happened, nor do I think it's going to happen. For various reasons, including like the percentage of black population in Germany, including the way the cops in Germany act and are treating versus the ones in the US. So it's like that's why I can't say, well, like, there's Black Lives Matter protests in Germany during a pandemic when people have to be locked up in their homes for their safety. And you're keeping the Black Lives Matter protesters unsafe by allowing them not to social distance and go outside. Okay? Like, that was immoral. Immoral Germany. Very immoral. Will Europeans do as Sri Lanka did? Probably not. I don't think it's going to... But if it gets as bad as it was in Sri Lanka, like, you gotta understand, there is this saying that an army marches on an empty stomach, which is absolutely true, right? But so is it true about the citizens. Sorry, an army marches on its stomach, right? But so do citizens. Like, citizens require circus and bread. The circus is important to distract the citizens from, looking into why is this politician having a better lifestyle than I do? Why is this corrupt politician managing to get away with the shit that I wouldn't be? So they did the circus. But they also need the bread. And the bread is more important. Like, the moment people run out of bread, then they start protesting. Like, I don't know why that is. I generally don't know. Like, you can have the most fascistic, the most authoritarian rules ever imagined being implemented, and most of the population isn't going to do jack shit about it. But the moment they run out of bread, historically speaking, people don't like staying indoors anymore. So that's what happened in Sri Lanka. They ran out of bread and circus, but mostly bread. Meanwhile, in the Netherlands, they're not running out of bread, except the farmers. Like, the farmers, they're like, okay, well, if you don't protest now, we're going to shut down your farm. So they're a little bit concerned. They're hashtag concerned. Do you guys in Europe have guillotines in storage? You might need to... No, that's a French thing. In Romania, we had pikes. Haven't used them since the Middle Ages. The communist leader got shot by platoon execution. But other than that, no, we don't have death penalty. German farmers blocked the road on the Netherlands border to protest on July the 6th. Farmers Weekly reported that the farmers are allegedly advocating against an amendment introduced in the German parliament to increase reliance on renewable energy source to 100%, according to Reuters, but would curb biogas production, the deep dive says. It is completely incomprehensible that in the middle of this far-reaching energy crisis, a sustainable domestic energy source such as biogas is curbed. Yeah, like, it is very difficult to understand, like, from my Romanian standpoint, it is incomprehensible that in my country an environmentalist would manage to leave their home without, how should I put it so that YouTube TOS doesn't get upset? Okay, so in Romania it is incomprehensible that any environmentalist can leave their home without receiving harsh words and criticism from the public. Like, the moment people have received their electricity bill, okay? The nicest thing that I said is, like, can Greta Thunberg's mother pay for this shit? But it was used in a more less endearing way, okay? So that is, like, the nicest thing. But what I want to say is that people have received their electricity bill, and they're very upset, and they have a lot of negative energy that they need to channel somewhere. And if they find out you're an environmentalist, it's kind of like a lightning rod. Like, all of a sudden, like, that negative energy that was directed elsewhere, it goes towards the environmentalist. So that's pretty much how it's in Romania. But it's incomprehensible that in Germany, like, not only are the environmentalists not ashamed, but they're showing their face in the parliament. Like, that is a little bit, like, bewildering to the European mind. Biden is coming to my country tomorrow, so they're blocking all the roads. That's annoying. I didn't vote for him. What country is that? You have ILS currency. I don't know what that is. Well, like, why does he bother coming there? Like, they could just send you his teleprompter, and he wouldn't need to make an appearance. It would just be like, okay, well, Biden's teleprompter is here. Let's read it, and you guys would be informed. No, I don't think it's Israel, because like Israel has the shekel and it's got a different icon. But anyway, right. So protests accelerated across Europe after 40,000 Dutch farmers staged an uprising in response to policy to cut livestock-related emission by 50%. By the way, do you know what they did in Romania? They forbid you from having chickens. And by the way, like once I found out about this, now I actually want to have chickens. If you live within the city area, you're not allowed to have chickens. I don't know if the police officers actually enforce this. I know how they would enforce it. They would use snitches, like an army of snitches. But yeah, if you're in the city area or if you're around a city, you're not allowed to have chickens. Which is interesting. Definitely not allowed to have a pig. But I do hear chickens like where I live. Obviously not from my neighbors, but I hear them in the distance. So I guess even though it's made into legislation, the police isn't applying the rules. Which is also another interesting Romanian concept. Like Romania is saying what the European Union is saying. So if the EU is saying you need to jump, we're like, oh yeah, sure, we're jumping. But in reality, we're not. You know, so say what they say, but do what we want to do. That's the Romanian foreign policy, which has worked great up until now. So I pretty much assume that this is what's happening. It's the law exists, like you're not allowed to have chickens, but people have them anyway. And the police isn't interested in giving fines. Simple. What I hear are the president's chickens? I wouldn't be surprised about that. Did your wife not let you get the gazebo? No, I'm planning to pay for my entire house. I'm planning to pay for my mortgage before I buy the gazebo. Hold on a little bit. Like I'll show you something with my wife. Like this was infuriating. What happened? So once a month, I take my wife out to a nice place. And I did this today. We went to the Palace of Culture. This is called the Palace of Culture. And it was an interesting venue. And motherfucker, I got the first picture right. Okay, because like she wants me to take a selfie of her and then put it on Twitter. And I managed to get the first picture, like, click. It was perfect. And I put it on. However, because she was holding one of her fingers in a weird angle, it looked as if she lost a finger. Like, it looked as if she didn't have a finger. And a motherfucker from Twitter, I don't think it's one of you guys, but god damn it, he posted... It's like, oh, V, your wife lacks one finger. No wonder she went out. No wonder she chose you. And she saw that. So now she's asking me to take pictures again. You gotta understand. Like, this picture that you see right here, like, people are like, why aren't you smiling in the picture? This is not the first picture taken. Like, I need to take, like, 50 pics until she's happy. Like, she puckers her lips. She you know, like... And until she's happy with the picture, she doesn't let me upload it. Neither does she let me eat the food. Like, sometimes the food gets cold. You can see the beer was drunk while we were taking pictures. So, here I am, you know, really happy that I managed to take a picture from the first go. But now I need to just take picture after picture after picture. And she puts the fingers on the table just to see that they're all there. Actually, you know, like the thumb here, you know, you may not know. It's fuck God. And I have to please her, you know. I do have to please her because I don't go out with her that often. When I do go out with her, I need to be nice. When your wife cares more about anonymous than your well-being. Oh, shut the fuck up, dude. You're going to get a girlfriend at one point. And you're going to see that They so much care. When it's about pictures and their looks, like you can throw them 1,000 compliments, but if that one guy appears and gives them that one criticism, that's what's going to stick. Eat the food and stop taking the pictures. But then like look, like a woman has to complain. This is in the woman spirit. Every single woman complains at one point about something. I would rather have her complain about pictures than complain that I spent too much time at the computer, for example. That I spent too much time with you guys. Like, that would be horrible. So I'm really happy that she complains about trivial shit rather than complain about important stuff. Does that make sense? What Potty Gal? What are you? Do you want to start something? Do you want to start something, Potty Gal? Do you have something to add to the conversation? Please do. I would really like to see you challenging me on this. Girlfriend and wife are the same thing. A girlfriend doesn't have as much legal power over you. Oh my god, no. We have the philosophers in the chat. See? The difference between an American wife and a Romanian wife is that Romanian wives believes in superstition. They believe that they made a vow in front of God and that breaking the vow means they get to burn in hell. Hellfire apparently isn't pretty, so I heard. So, therefore, even though they have legal power over you, they're afraid to use it because they're superstitious. Anywho, where was I? So, footage has already shown that the farmers in Poland and Italy are marching through the streets to demonstrate against what they perceive. I don't, my fucking, who wrote this piece? The Daily Caller. What do you mean it's like, footage shows the farmers marching through the streets to demonstrate against what they perceive to be destructive government policies? The policies are destroying their livelihoods. The policies are telling them that they can't farm. What do you mean they perceive? They perceive. I perceive that if you keep perceiving, I'm going to stuff my cock up your throat. You know, like that. The demonstrations are inspired by the Dutch and German farmer protests, according to multiple reporters. The Polish Farmer Advocacy Organization orchestrated I gotta say, like, I'm really sad that the Polish have to suffer because of this shit. Like, the Polish didn't do nothing. They don't deserve empty supermarkets. We do not agree that Poland is flooded with food imported from abroad. Oh, no. Never mind. They actually do have grievances. So their grievance is that they're in the supermarket, there's too much foreign food. And by the way, do you know where we import food from? Turkey. I don't know if we actually get anything from China, but we get stuff from Turkey. Protesters also gathered in Italy, farmers reported. What trade, Daniel? What do you want to know? We are not slaves, we are farmers. We cannot make ends meet. An Italian said. The UN warned last week that supply chain disruptions and global conflict, including Russia blockade and the Ukrainian Black Sea port, could cap agriculture production globally. 345 million people are facing starvation. Yeah, so when people are facing starvation, I'm just curious, okay? Like, please help me out. If people are facing starvation and the European Union wants to close down farms, what would you call the European Union wanting to do with these 345 million people? Like, imagine this, if you're starving and I come into your house and I take away the food and the ability for you to buy food, some might say that's an accessory of murder. No, I don't think we're getting food from China. We are getting food from Ukraine. We used to get food from Russia. And I do think we import stuff from the European Union, from Spain and Italy. But that's pretty much it. The Netherlands is the world's second largest food exporter after the United States. The German Farmer Association, the government of Germany, the Italian ministry, blah, 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 did not respond to the Daily Caller for requests on comment. Well, I mean, again, what the fuck can they say? What the fuck can they say? I mean, it looks so bad, doesn't it? Like, oh, there's a food crisis. 345 million people could starve. What does the government do? Shut down the farms. I mean, that makes sense. Complete logical sense, right? Complete logical coherency. I mean, maybe we get some Chinese products. I don't know. It's usually very expensive to import food from all the way from China. So I understand if we don't have that many. But no, like Turkey is the main importer of food, and then Italy. I mean, it depends. You know, like the European Union wants to make it so that every single nation specializes on something, so that no nation is autonomous and self-sustaining. So, for example, Greece, I think they get to make the olives. You get tomatoes from Italy. It's kind of funny. Like it's kind of like the Hunger Games. Like I remember certain critics with the Hunger Games going, it's like, oh well, it's not economically feasible for all the districts to produce one thing. Like why can't the districts? Like for example, you have the United States, right? And the idea that California would only produce one thing, like how does that make sense? And the reason it didn't make sense is because the person criticizing it was an American. It makes perfect sense if you want to control people, because that's the whole point of the Hunger Games. The reason you had districts specializing on only one thing is why districts were poor as fuck. Is because had they been allowed to actually do all the things that they could, they would have been rich. But the whole purpose was for the capital to subjugate them. So if you're a district that only produces lumber and nothing else, you're going to starve if you decide not to work with the capital, right? Because the capital goes to the farming district that produces grain and nothing else, and takes grain from there and gives some to you, and takes the lumber from you and gives some to them. So that's how it actually works. That's how why the Hunger Games was designed like that. And it's very intelligent way, and the European Union is trying to emulate that. It's actually trying to make every single state specialize on one thing. Well, actually, you know, like specialize on things so that they lose their sovereignty. They lose their autonomy. There's a reason why the Imperial Guard are broken down into specialized units. Ah, I see. The whole thing is like, if people are it's kind of like, you know, getting people to be reliant on the government so they don't rebel against the government. And you can also get states to be reliant on the European Union so they don't go against the European Union. In many areas in the US, you can fish without a license. I think you need a license to fish in my country, but like unless you go with a net or with a grenade, you're pretty much left alone. Like I haven't seen many people actually getting a fishing license to fish as a hobby, as a sport. Like I'm pretty sure if you go into certain areas where you have like endangered species of fish, you'd be harassed for not having a license. But in most places, like people are allowed to fish. And I guess, you know, it also matters like if it's a private place or not. Like if it's a private resort that have their own lake or whatever, then that's different than if you decide to fish in a public space. Trey Daniel disagrees that in America you can't fish without a license. Again, like you know, like fishing without the license is it's next to impossible to enforce unless you have snitching. If you have snitching, then yeah. But mostly, if you go in the middle of nowhere to fish, who the fuck is going to see? You know, it depends what you're taking with you. Like if you're taking a fishing pole, yeah, good luck. And even if they catch you, like what are they going to do? Give you a small fine, right? But if you're going with a net or you're going in a professional environment, then yeah, you need to have a fishing license. I'm salmon fishing now while... Get the fuck out. I don't believe you, Elena Ceausescu. There's no fucking way. Like, the coincidence is way too big. What do you use as bait? By the way, I fucking hate fishing. I despise... It's like one of the most grotesque ways of capturing an animal imaginable. And not only that, like you just sit there with the pole in the water and you wait and you wait and you wait, and apparently that's the point. And it's like, it's supposed to be relaxing. Like, what the fuck is relaxing about just looking at the water? I mean, like, if you're on a boat, it's probably a lot more cooler. But even then. Now, hunting, that's a sport. I never went hunting, but I swear to God I would love to. Like, I would love having the dog and you shoot the duck and the dog goes after the duck. Like, that would be so cool. How would you catch a fish? With a net or a grenade? Grenades. Like, you throw the grenade in the water, it goes, and then the water goes up, and then the fish goes belly up. Like, that's kind of cool. A lure called the buzz bomb is used. See, a bomb. Yeah, like that's how you fish. You throw dynamite in. This is to encourage the video on Ukrapol Alliance. It's not an alliance, it's a commonwealth. And it depends if Ukraine is winning. Okay, I'll give you a little bit of a heads up, alright? I did my best in order to listen to the news coming from the Ukrainian conflict. And everywhere you look, you get biased news. Like, you either get pro-Western propaganda or you get pro-Russian propaganda. And it's so fucking annoying to make a video on it. Because there are people that, like, they think they're independent thinking, but they just listen to Russian Today propaganda. And you have the opposite, right? Here's my take on what's happening in Ukraine right now. Things aren't looking good. It's a war of attrition, and Russia is squatting on a big chunk of Ukraine right now. And the war is not going in the Ukraine's favor. However, it's not won. I mean, they can still turn it around. And they do have the possibility, because now most Ukrainian soldiers have NATO equipment. And on top of that, a lot of them have gained veterancy. They already fought. So if you're on the side of Ukraine, there is still hope. I don't know what Jordan Peterson's newest tweet was, but like most people in the West, they don't understand the conflict. They don't know the history of the area. They don't understand why the Ukrainians are pissed. Again, the Russians gave the gift of Holodomor upon Ukraine. The people in the Donbass area didn't suffer from the Holodomor. Neither did the ones in Crimea, which is why they surrendered. And they're like, oh, well, we're fine with the Russians. But the ones that did, they remember. And they don't like it. Ukraine is not our responsibility, though. And if the US send them well, it's pure imperialism. That's what it is. Okay? Like, do you care about the American empire or not? Because the thing is, if the United States would actually want an isolationist policy, like, let's say the US would be like, we're just going to pull our troops in our borders, and we don't care about anything else. Okay? Like, if it's not attacking us, we're not intervening. That would be the end of Western civilization. Period. Like, the Western dominance would be over within probably 1 month. You would have China taking over Taiwan, which is 90% of the world's manufacturing of chips. So you, as a member of the US, would have to pay whatever China decides you need to pay, you know, if you want to have chips, and they would probably come with various backdoor viruses and various ways of gaining control of your machines that you plug the chips in. Saudi Arabia would probably stop selling oil for dollars, which would cause all the dollars you printed to come back into your country, causing an inflation that the world has never seen before. I mean, if you think the Great Depression is bad, wait until that happens. And let's see, what else? Probably World War III. I mean, Europe would definitely start it. The reason Europe is behaving right now, I mean, historically, Europe has had conflicts constantly. And one of the reasons Europe is so advanced is due to the constant warfare that has gone here, which is probably one of the best ways humanity have figured out how to advance. Like, when you have a situation of war, you need to constantly pump up better things in order to survive. And the reason Europe is peaceful is because America is guaranteeing that peace. But if America were to have an isolationist policy, well, you'd have World War III. So, yeah, I mean, people who say, well, Russia is not our problem, it's like, okay, sure, but the way the American politicians are selling the Ukraine war is so fucking bad, because it's almost like talking to children, right? It's almost like, oh, well, Russia bad guys, we good guys, we no, like, talk about economically. Like, why do you need this? From an economic and strategic point of view. Like, we need to keep Russia in check so China doesn't take Taiwan. That's what you need to say to the American public, okay? If China takes Taiwan, we don't have chips. Like, you need to understand, everything you have has a computer chip, okay? Your phone has a computer chip, your computer has a computer chip, your car has a computer chip. Imagine if World War II happened and Poland was the only nation on earth that would produce steam engines. It's kind of like that. And also, on top of that, the concept is like, well, and I think like a neocon actually said it, like, the war in Ukraine exists and they pump money into it so American soldiers don't die. It's like they're pumping money and equipment into Ukraine so that Russia doesn't keep extending, and then it invades a NATO allied neighbor, and you have American soldiers that are in the crossfire. Your computer chip has a computer chip? It probably does at this point. Like, I mean, the thing is, there was a question, like, why can't Europe have its computer chip manufacturing? And the reason for that is that the current computer chips are so tiny that in order to construct them, you'd have to build a factory that makes the robots, that make the robots, that make the robots, that make the chip. Which is so expensive and so unprofitable that no one wants to do it. But yeah, like, because the way it happened in Taiwan, it was naturally through the course of time. Like, eventually, the first chips could be made by hand, because those were big. But then you had to make robots to make tinier chips. And then you had to make robots that made other robots that made tinier chips. And then you had robots that made tinier robots that made tinier robots, which made tinier chips, and so on and so forth, right? So, like, the technology advanced through time, which is why most of the factories are in Taiwan, because that's the place where they were initially built. They still try to set up chip factories in Europe. Yes, they do. And it's also like, it's not just that, but it's the delicate process involving in making a chip. Like, apparently a speck of dust can just destroy the entire chip. So you need a sterile environment, you need the technological know-how, you need the investment. It's not that simple. Yeah, it is robots all the way down. I mean, like, we are reaching the levels where physics just don't work. Like, the way current chips are being made is by making them smaller and smaller and smaller. But, like, you're reaching the level of quantum technology where, like, the chips are so small, you can't make them any smaller. So now you'd have to create a new type of technology, which is the quantum computing. And that would be something which might revolutionize the way chips are being made. Holy shit, 99. You know, like, before, when I would get $19.99, it would be like, oh, I mean, that's great. But now it's like, holy fuck, like, that's a lot of money. My family is half Russian and Ukrainian. I was raised speaking Russian. I see both sides. My most conflicted viewpoint, I think it would be good for the West to finally have legitimate competition. The West does have legitimate competition. I mean, China exists, and on top of that, the United States is still competition. But like in Europe itself, the nation states are competing with each other. Germany is competing with Poland, and the United Kingdom. That is competition. I don't know what to say. I mean, I don't view conflict as a good thing. You know, I would prefer if it didn't get to this point. And I think the only reason it got to this point is because Putin. Well, I don't like to say Putin. You know, like this is so fucking hell. It's like mainstream media brainland take. Okay, like Putin may have a lot of powers in Russia, but it's not a dictatorship. It's an oligarchy. So the Russian elites, let's put it like this, they thought that the same thing that happened in Crimea when the Russians went in and everyone surrendered is going to happen in Ukraine. And the answer is that it didn't. And it didn't because, as I mentioned before, during World War II, Stalin, through a process of Russification, which this gentleman that super chatted me probably went through, not only displaced a big chunk of the population and deported them to Siberia, but also forced the remaining population to speak Russian and learn Russian culture and so on and so forth. And it is concentrated mostly in the Donbass region. However, as you're moving more towards Kiev, the Ukrainian people don't really appreciate the Russians due to the Holodomor and other excesses that they did during the Soviet occupation. So, yeah. Why did they steal the yachts? Because they could. So, such an interesting question. Like, why do countries do something? Because they can. Like, why did Iran steal, I think it was a gas liner. Like, it recently happened. Like, you have the Iran deporting some of its National Guard troops, and they went down from a helicopter like in the movies, and they stole, I believe it was a Greece naval ship carrying gas. Why did they do that? Because they could. I mean, this is what the European Union has invited. Yes, like by stealing shit. I mean, you know, like stealing an oligarch's yacht. It's populism. That's what it is. You know, like the masses like it. It's like, oh yes, we're punishing the oligarchs. Oh yeah. But in reality, you're just inviting the opposition to do the same to you. Global Foundries also helped AMD make CPUs during the shortage. It's just that the latest chips that are issue. Lots of countries make mediocre stuff. Yeah, but like, I guess you can roll back to mediocre stuff. But again, like, imagine a situation where China manages to take over Taiwan, right? And now China has access to the chips that Taiwan makes, and you have access to mediocre stuff. Well, militarily, China is going to dominate you. That's what's going to happen. Economically, it's going to dominate you. Their computers are just better. Their shit is just better. Yours is mediocre. Yeah, there's I mean, a lot of people notice the problem with Taiwan. So you do have many factories that are built for chips in the US. You have the European Union building chips. People are realizing, okay, well, 95% of the entire chips manufacturing being in one place might not be a good idea. May not be sustainable, I guess. Oh my god, this is okay. I'll show you something, chat. This is completely different than the subject we're talking about. There's a lot of people that are mocking Marvel's visual effects. Okay? And they're really awful. How awful Marvel visual effects are? This is a Marvel movie, okay? I mean, this is... I can do this, chat. I can do. You guys know that I'm not a very good editor. I mean, there are people editing way better than I can do this easily, easily, chat. I can pull this off, right? So I don't know what the fuck is happening at Marvel, but the quality is going down. I've heard it would take all of China's active military, including reserves, to take Taiwan. Yeah, so the thing with Taiwan, they've been preparing for a Chinese invasion for decades now. We're talking about a nation the size of Germany, which is pretty much like a fortress. And on top of that, they also have the advantage of difficult to navigate waters, and you can only invade them twice, I think, a year. I think in like April and September. Because other than that, the waters are so difficult to navigate. There's powerful currents, there's big waves, making an invasion impossible. So yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be an easy task. And even if the United States would stay back, which I doubt, Japan and India definitely wouldn't, it would be World War III. Now, there is a way that I guess is a little bit insane, but if China were to detonate a nuke into the stratosphere and just have the EMP just completely disable Taiwan's electrical grid, that would probably shock the West. Like, the West wouldn't expect that. It would give a big WTF. Invading an island is an extremely difficult. Yeah, I mean, Germany tried to invade Britain during World War II. Invading islands is always difficult. What was it? The Huns, if I'm not mistaken, they tried to invade Japan. And the Han Empire was like massive. And they couldn't do it. These days, the grid is far more resilient to EMPs. I mean, theoretically, but, you know, the theory is only as good as until it's put into practice. So we've never seen like what would actually happen, because there's a lot of things that you wouldn't expect. I mean, people wouldn't be able to use ATMs, and people wouldn't be able to use phone lines, and cars wouldn't work. But like the Mongols, yeah, my bad, the Mongols. But probably the military stuff could still work, at least half of it. And again, like I guess like if they did that, like let's use an EMP to take out the electrical grid, then the invasion would probably soon follow. Like it would just be a thing so that they can do shock and awe. Every mobile phone would probably go on fire. I don't think it would go on fire. It would just stop working. They could just roll over like Hong Kong. Hong Kong is it was a lot more difficult. So it was a lot more difficult to defend because they didn't expect it. Right? Like Hong Kong wasn't training for a Chinese invasion the same way that Taiwan was. So Taiwan was not only just, I mean, in Taiwan, from what I understand, if you have, like, if they suspect that you have Chinese literature, they can lock you in prison. So if they suspect you have communist literature, they can lock you in prison. So if you're suspected of having like communist books or communist paraphernalia, or if it, like ideologically they're screening for that shit, they go all the way into authoritarianism. Like, don't think Taiwan itself is a very democratic and happy place. It's a place that's under. Only recently did they have elections, if I'm not mistaken. Like it's a place on high alert, basically. And there's also a lot more to talk about because, if I'm not mistaken, like Taiwan was initially held by Japanese ethnicals. So, yeah. Hong Kong isn't a country, unfortunately. It is technically owned by China. Well, that's what they say about Taiwan as well. It was actually owned by the British Empire. China took it a lot faster just to show they can. And it was always going back to China. I mean, it was the British Empire. I think after the Opium Wars, after they got the peace, they got Taiwan and they got it for. Sorry, they got Hong Kong and they got it for a limited period of time, and the time was about to expire. However, the Chinese went a lot faster in, and that's why they took it. Anyway, right. I'm falling asleep here, chat. Please forgive me. So I'm going to go to bed a lot faster than I expected. Thank you for watching the stream. Hopefully you guys liked it, and I'll see you all tomorrow.